Hey, sports fans, this is world champion handicapper Mike North. Punch this number in your phone right now. If you're driving, pull over. 1-800-808-3419. 1-800-808-3419 for a free pick and info for the premier handicapping site in the country, VegasScoresAndOdds.com. It's the only site you'll ever need with expert handicappers like John Anthony, Denny Macklin, Tony Sacco, Ray Monahan, yours truly, and many more. Check out the homepage of VegasScoresAndOdds.com for a tote board with your buddy. Follow Vegas Scores and Odds on Twitter and dial up 1-800-808-3419. It's 1-800-808-3419, 1-800-808-3419, or go to VegasScoresAndOdds.com.
What follows is for news and entertainment purposes only. Any use of the forthcoming information in violation of any federal, state, or local law is prohibited. Mike North, you are on fire.
You know anybody else that good?
No.
No, they'll tell you they are. They may think they are, but we're documented every single week. The eye is on us.
That's
and I ain't
right.
talking about the eye of CBS, the public eye. The first feeling I got when I won a bet was elation. The worst feeling was when I lost a bet and I wanted to jump off a balcony.
Give me a quick betting tip.
Yeah, do win and don't lose, but usually it doesn't always work out that way. How many times you heard this? I'm going to Vegas. I go, how'd you do? Well, if I lost $4,000, but you go there to have fun. No, you go there to win. And that's what's wrong with people. They have the negative mentality in anything they do, including sports, before they even laid the bet down. So you got to be positive. Vegas Scores and Odds is the landing place that gave me an opportunity to handicap. They let me show what I could do, and there's packages, there's free picks. What does Vegas Scores and Odds do when you perform? They reward you, and they take care of you, and that's why we're ready to do this show.
The Vegas Scores and Odds Advantage with Mike North starts right now. That's right. Vegas Scores and Odds Advantage with Mike North starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman. It is Monday, and that means there's tons of NFL talk. And we'll begin with the Chicago Bears' big win over the Dallas Cowboys last Thursday. Is this a turning point for the team? Will Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky finally be able to lead this offense to victories? Unfortunately, the Bears didn't get any help with any of the other teams that needed to lose to help their playoff chances. We'll get into that and also all these great games that happened on Sunday, including the Saints 49ers. My goodness, the over was achieved in the first half alone in that game, and the Chiefs win in New England. That's amazing, and much, much more. Let's bring Mike in now. Mike North, how are you, my friend?
Great weekend of football, both college and pro, and went 2-1 automatically, as usual. It's like a regular thing with Vegas Scores and Odds Advantage, folks, Bears Barroom, as I went 2-1 with Miami of Ohio and the under. That was a double win, and then UAB, I picked them. They got massacred, but we stand at 25-18 right now, which is 7 games above 500, my friend.
You are one of the hottest handicappers in the world. No matter what period of time you look at, you are always coming through for your followers and your listeners. Tell people where they can go to get more information on packages for Vegas Scores and Odds.
Well, basically, you go right to VegasScoresAndOdds.com, VegasScoresAndOdds.com. Then, once you get there, you look at the records. Right now, this week, I'm 14-7. In the last 7 days, 14-7 in the National Football League. I'm winning on every level. I'm a top 4 on every category, from hockey to the NBA to NCAA. Although you name it, I'm there, getting it done. And then we got, of course, the odds couple where we were 2-3 this week, but now we're going to have a ruling tomorrow on another game about 8 o'clock by the World Gambling Association Board, which has its headquarters in Prague, where basically I had the over in the New Orleans game, I had told everybody if I had to make a pick, it's not going to count as my regular picks, but if I had to make a pick, I would take the over because it seems so low. And it was, because guess what? It was over at the halftime, for God's sake. There was like 80 points scored in that San Francisco-New Orleans game. So it was a great week for 1-0, plus the Bears won.
Bears won, yes. And I got to tell you, Q from Cincy in the chat room says, Mike North, you are a genius. And Heart4803, who is with us for every live show, says Mike has been on a roll on all platforms. So that's just a tasting of your fans and what they think of you, Mr. North.
Well, you know what else? I just want them to know that, I hope they take the picks, too. I hope they just don't count along. And you know what? And I hope they take the picks. For instance, like I said, 25-18, 7 over 500 at the odds couple. At Vegas Scores and Odds, Bears Barroom Network, and then 46-35 with a ruling tomorrow on the odds couple. And then I'm just hammering people, which I'll show on Accountability Tuesday tomorrow, how we do it. I'm going to show everybody the documentation when I put the bets in. Once they receive them, and then whether we won or lost them for the last month. So this way people know that they're on the level. And in fact, I'm starting to see more people on social media that make picks starting to be accountable. I had a guy say this morning he was 6-6 over the weekend. You never used to see that.
Yeah.
That's what people want to see. They don't want to hear the guys that are 19-1 over the last 6 days. They want to see it. They don't want to hear from people that say, "Hey, I went 8-1, this weekend." But where'd you go 8-1? Where's your platform? So I think people now, with gambling that's going to become legal everywhere in the United States and the world except in the state of Illinois, because they don't know how to cut up the pie with the politicians, I think people are going to want more accountability.
Q from Cincy says he's no longer living in the projects thanks to you. He's living good.
You know what? Anything from the projects is a step up, my friend. There's no doubt about it.
Tell me, I came from the projects.
Brown brick buildings with the windows that don't open. It's always a thrill.
There you go. All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. A totally impressive win last Thursday against the Dallas Cowboys at Soldier Field. For the first time all season, it looked like these Chicago Bears looked like what we expected them to look like at the beginning of the season. You with me on that?
Absolutely. They're 7-6. They're not giving up. But you know what? I want everybody to also remember this, and I do call him this the last 2 weeks. Mitch Trubisky, he's Johnny True. He's not Johnny U. He's Johnny True the last 2 weeks.
I like that.
Okay? But you know what he was the first 6 weeks? Good old PU. You know what that means? PU. So I want everybody to know that when we don't make the playoffs, even though Mitch is showing some growth, we didn't make the playoffs because of his play primarily and the coaching of Matt Nagy.
Right.
So as we start to get hopeful, and we're on the outside looking in, and we're at 2%, we should probably be at 50 or 60%. But Mitch Trubisky digressed the first half of the season, and so did Matt Nagy. And we had some injuries, but so what? So does Pittsburgh. And they're in the wild card right now, so I don't want to hear excuses about injuries. But those are the two culprits that are the reason that we're on the outside looking in as we're showering praise on them once the barn door is ready to close.
Yeah. And you know what is also interesting about, you mentioned the coaching on this. The Bears now are running the ball much more effectively, and it started around the time that they made the move at the interior of the line where they moved the left guard, Cody Whitehair, back to center where he played his first 2 seasons, and then moved the young guy who had been moved to center, the second-year player, James Daniels, to left guard. And while still not perfect play by that offensive line, they do seem to be much more efficient at what they are doing. I think that's a big part of why this offense is working. And you've got these guys, Jesper Horsted and J.P. Holtz at the tight end position, delivering the goods. These guys are making plays, and that's a big part of the Matt Nagy offense, the tight ends.
Yeah, and politics has got to stop being played because these two guys are better than Burton and Shaheen. Believe me. You know how I know that? I got the eye test. In the limited time I've seen these guys play, they're better than the 2 guys I watched.
Yep.
So why weren't they up sooner? Because Pace picked that guy second, and because Trey Burton had a pass. But, Trey Burton, as it turns out, had some issues, both on the field, off the field, injury. And then you got Shaheen, who was vastly a bad pick and overrated. But you know what? We should have seen these two guys, or one of these guys, earlier. It's good to see these guys now, but once again, you waited till the barn doors closed before you brought in some playmakers to help Mitch Trubisky. That being said, Montgomery right now is 8th in the league in broken tackles. He's probably broken more tackles the last 2 weeks than he did all season long, but that lends you to what Aldo said in the preseason, that he was a guy that could break tackles. I don't think he's got the overall speed as a breakaway guy, but the bottom line is he's the wear and tear runner that we've been looking for since Jordan Howard left. And you know what? They're mixing up the plays. They're less predictable now, and that's got to be a help, too.
Yeah, I'll have to look up the yards after contact for David Montgomery, because I bet you he has picked up a lot of yards after being hit first time, second time. He's just so good at continuously moving his legs. I mean, he's not Walter Payton by any stretch of the imagination, but he does remind me of that running style where he's inflicting punishment and keeps the legs moving with power.
Absolutely. And you know what? You could bring up Jordan Howard. He reminds you of Jordan Howard moving the chains lately. They're putting him in a better position. The quarterback's playing better. They're not stacking up 8 on the line for the kid. They're letting, and the kid's breaking some tackles. Don't be deceived, folks. Well, I don't see him break that many tackles downfield. No, it's that first tackle you break 2 yards behind the line where maybe a defensive lineman got in. It's breaking a tackle on the outside against the corner. Like I say about my guy Jordan Howard, who's been injured, but when he played for the Bears, his runs weren't fancy, just like Montgomery's, but they were productive. You'd get first downs, you'd move the chains, and that's what Montgomery's starting to do with some help from the coaching staff, from Nagy, mixing things up a little better. And you're right, the offensive line, except for Whitehair not being able to snap the ball out of the shotgun on a consistent basis, in my opinion. He could get it in a better spot for Mitch. It's pretty tough to reach around your ankles and then look up. You ever try to tie your shoes and then look up real quick? Okay? Let me tell you a little story. Here's the deal. Try tying your shoes tomorrow when you first wake up. Just bend over. Tie your shoes like you just got a snap. Look up, but then pretend there's a 290-pound man coming at you. Okay? As you fall back dizzy onto the bed. That's all I'm telling you. But other than that, I'm happy with the way they played. But you know what? They're playing loosey-goosey. When they had to play loosey-goosey and get the job done, they couldn't. They're playing goosey-loosey now because, like I've said 3 times already, the barn door's shut. Easier to play when there's no pressure. As we saw the other night in a college game with Utah, who had an easy schedule, hadn't been on national TV hardly all year. The bright lights came on them, and Oregon kicked their ass because they were used to it.
There you go. And how about Allen Robinson? You talked about how well he's been playing on a recent show. He has caught 4 of Mitch Trubisky's last 7 touchdown passes. Those two have developed a chemistry that, in my mind, could even get better and better as time goes on. Allen Robinson is become a stud for this offense.
I was so wrong about him. I want to just say Ryan Pace, that's a great pickup. We talk about Ryan Pace's bad pickups. I thought he was nuts. Coming off the injury, he had a great 2015. I said that, okay, for 1 year we could pick up a receiver like Jordy Nelson, and Nelson had a great year last year, and as good a year as Robinson. But I said for the long term, we need somebody different than Robinson. I was absolutely wrong. I love the kid. He's my type of player. Makes the catch, doesn't look if he's going to get hit, runs precise patterns, does get mad at Mitch. I'm not saying he's very vocal in the huddle, but he's a guy that speaks up when he's wide open. So I was so wrong about him. The bar room was right about him when this first happened. So bottom line is he's been a great addition, and without him, I don't know where we'd be.
Yeah, this offense would be in trouble.
You're pretty shocked after that admission. My God, are you shocked? I look at you, you're like, oh, Jesus, what happened? Mike admitted he was wrong about something. Stop the presses.
I'm going to send that to your son, Shane, here at the bar room. He's going to love it.
Oh, no, I mean, really, once you see it, you know what a pickup. What a pickup. And, Jacksonville, which is a graveyard, They stink.
Yeah.
And they have an owner who owns the team because he went to school with the McCaskies at the University of Illinois, got in there and got the job done. But I've seen nothing that even suggests to me that the Jacksonville Jaguars deserve a team in the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they should basically, I'd like to see them in another destination. They are the forgotten children of the National Football League.
They are. A couple of more offensive players that I want to talk about before we start talking about the defense. Anthony Miller, the second-year wide receiver, who for the first half of the season was extremely disappointing. He was behaving in a way that just didn't kind of fit the team culture. He was running poor patterns and so forth. Well, now over the last 4 games, he has gotten hot. He's getting open. He's behaving in a more mature manner. And here's another guy who could be a gigantic part of this offense for years to come. Number 17, Anthony Miller, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that Anthony Miller was a product of a coach that didn't want to play people in the preseason. And if they would have played these people in the preseason, maybe it wouldn't take some of these players 4 or 5 games to get ready. Now, I don't know how much Miller played. I'm sure he played a little bit, but it wasn't a lot. And I also would not blame Miller for his first half solely alone. I'll blame the offensive line. I'll blame Mitch Trubisky, and I'll blame the play callers. But yes, Miller deserves it too. Miller's bounced back, but isn't it funny? With the play calling, the blocking, and Trubisky, they've all come together.
They really have. And then the other guy I wanted to talk about was Cordero Patterson. He has also been a big factor in this turnaround for the team. First of all, on special teams, he is getting the team excellent field position, getting it up close to midfield with his electrifying runs. And then on offense, we got a really good taste for what he can do, not only as a pass receiver, but also blocking downfield. I mean, this guy has the body of a tight end, and in a few plays, he was actually playing a sort of pseudo U-type tight end position and blocking. Cordero Patterson has been huge recently, and he looked really good in those yellow shoes that he had on Thursday Night Football.
I'd like to see more of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
me too.
I don't understand. He is a stud. I know he's a special teams player. Is he as good a receiver as Devin Hester was? Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see more of him on the field. I know that with the tight end situation straightening itself out, they were going to go to him more, but now they don't have to because these other 2 guys have shown up who have done a good job. So I think it's people stepping up, people that didn't play in the preseason. I'm really anxious, Aldo, for next year to see if Nagy does the same thing again and doesn't play his starters in the preseason, because there were 2 teams that stuck to not playing the starters in the preseason last year, and it worked, the Rams and the Bears. And this year, the Rams and the Bears were the main 2 teams that didn't play their starters. Not that they were alone, but they were the 2 most visible. And all of a sudden now, the Rams are starting to perk up. And I'm just wondering, if these starters would have played a few reps in the preseason, wouldn't this come along a little bit faster? I mean, both teams were stale the first half, and they have way too much talent to be that way, don't you think?
I totally agree with you, but I do think that Matt Nagy is going to be stubborn. He's not going to play his starters in the preseason next season. What he's going to do is do what he did last season and schedule a scrimmage with a team, because Nagy wants control over his players during the preseason. He wants to limit their opportunity to get injured. And in a game, it's no holds barred, but in a controlled scrimmage, they can be careful about players' health. I think he's going to go back to that. They didn't have a scrimmage this season. I think they'll go back to what they did last season. Your thoughts?
Well, you know what? You might be right about that, but I will say this. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a tougher sell than last season.
I hear you.
Okay? We're not playing our starters because we didn't make the playoffs. Sounds a hell of a lot different than we're not going to play our starters, because we made the playoffs. And so to me, that's a problem. I think he's going to have to, maybe he can intersperse some guys like that, but I just find it odd that the Rams and the Bears were the 2 teams a lot of people loved to be co-favorites to go to the Super Bowl. And they're coming out of it now in the second half of the season, where they were basically both useless the first half. So we'll see how it happens. We'll see what it goes. I would like to see a little bit more consistency in the preseason. And if you're worried about injuries, you know what? Maybe they got injuries for lack of playing, because the Bears are one of the leading teams in injuries, aren't they, in the NFL?
Yeah, I'll have to double check that. But yeah, the injuries are piling up, and it's a great segue to our next point, talking about the defense. And it was announced at the press conference about an hour ago that Roquan Smith is out for the rest of the season. He's torn a pectoral muscle, and it is over for the second year. Bears linebacker, who was the leading tackler in the team with 101 tackles. How big of a loss is this for the Chicago Bears?
Man, he made 101 tackles, and I'll tell you, I didn't see half of them.
I
got to be honest with you. I know somebody was making the tackles, but they used to inflate everything. The coaches would say, let's say Urlacher would have 4 tackles on Sunday, unofficial stats. The next day, he'd have 12, as given by the Bear coaching staff. And I swear to God, I'd be sitting there with Jiggs on the score going, Jiggs, did you count 12 tackles? And he said, no, I counted 6. Okay, then later on, a few years later, they'd have Urlacher would have a 2-tackle day that you'd see on the TV, or not even Brian, somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And somebody like Briggs I'd see him have 3 tackles. The next day, I go to Doug Buffone, who I worked with a few years later. I go, Doug, how many tackles did you see Smith have? He goes, well, little buddy, I saw him with about 6 tackles yesterday. A couple solo there. How many is the Bears? The Bears got him for 14. So it's just one of those deals where, hey, look, there's Pro Bowl votes involved here. I think that your coaching staff is always going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It makes them look good. So I like to look at what I see, not what I hear. That being said, they got Kwiatkowski, they got some other linebackers, but yeah, they've been injured this year. And Roquan Smith, another guy that had a slow start in the first half of the season, and that personal issue thing started the trend of the Bears going downward until recently.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the Urlacher tackles thing, because last year in Roquan Smith's rookie season, he came within like 2 or 3 tackles of breaking Urlacher's rookie franchise record for tackles. And like you said, both players probably...
I never saw him.
Yeah, both players probably had inflated numbers, but Roquan...
When Brian made a tackle, I knew it, because I was a guy that was in the Brian Urlacher camp, but not in the camp that said he was all-world. And by the way, speaking of all-world, happy 77th birthday to a guy that Brian Urlacher would have spelled, Mr. Dick Butkus, who is turning 77 today. But a lot of people would have spelled him, not just Brian. Singletary, everybody would have spelled Dick Butkus, Bill George, all the great linebackers, Willie Lanier, they all would have spelled Butkus. But, I just count Roquan Smith's tackles. I'll come up with 5, and the next day he'll have 11. So to me, to have 100 tackles already at this point, you'd think their defense had done something in the first half.
Well, the defense, though, regarding points allowed, they're right there among the league leaders, and it's just that they're not creating the turnovers that they did last season, and that's what made them a tremendous... Yes, you're absolutely right, Mike. It's tough to sustain that year after year.
Remember I said at the beginning of the season, we both talked about this, how are they going to match last year? I mean, my God, Khalil Mack, okay, last year had 6 turnovers in the first 6 games. Now I'm excited when I hear his name. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I go, they announced Mack's name. He ran by the guy, but they announced him. So it's a different year for everybody. I think that. Oh, look at Eddie Jackson. Look at him, a different ball player this year. Not that the Bears defense is playing bad. I mean, they're in the top 10. But they're in the top 10 Vince Tobin style. Last year, they were a top defense Buddy Ryan style.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, and good news for the Bears linebackers, and it'll probably be Kevin Pierre-Louis continuing to take over. Yeah.
French? Oh, I'm sorry.
Akeem Hicks is probably going to come back. He's eligible to come back, and it looks like he's on track to come back against the Packers next Sunday. That should help those linebackers have unimpeded looks at those running backs, particularly given, that this running back for the Packers has been playing, well, he's been hot and cold, but he had an excellent game on Sunday. So Akeem Hicks' return to the lineup will be huge, right?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? And plus, it will take him off Twitter and radio. This way, he'll have a better existence. He'll start getting back to work. I mean, you know what? He's decided to call up people. I'll do this interview, that interview. All it did was get him in trouble. The kid's a stud. He's the MVP of the defense. I've said that this year. Last year was Khalil Mack, but this year, by admission and by absence, it's our guy, Akeem.
Yeah, and then the other good thing about Akeem Hicks coming back, if he can play anywhere near the level that he was before, is that it should free up Khalil Mack to make more disruptive plays. That, to me, is the biggest thing. And, going up against Aaron Rodgers, he tends to hold the ball a long time to find open receivers, and we're going to talk about the problem the Packers are having with the receivers just momentarily. But Akeem Hicks' return to the lineup should be big for Khalil Mack, who, by the way, has 7.5 sacks. You talk about, not seeing things, right? But he does have 7.5 sacks this year. He's probably going to end up in double digits again.
Yeah. Well, they're going to. You hit it on the head at the beginning, Elds. When we started talking about the defense, it's about the turnovers. Mm-hmm. And it's about Hicks being hurt. Yeah. And you know what? This linebacker is going to enjoy what Roquan Smith didn't have. And maybe Roquan Smith doesn't get hurt if Hicks is in there and keeps his. He doesn't have to make that tackle. Who knows? Things change when you lose a stud like that.
Yep, absolutely. Now, again, that Matt Nagy just finished the press conference, and he was asked an interesting question because we saw some offenses on Sunday, Mike, that were just putting up points in record fashion. And so Matt Nagy was asked, what do you think about watching these offenses score these big points? And I thought he had an interesting response.
For me, it's you like seeing great offensive football, and for our offense, I just appreciate the way that our guys have continued to just fight through this year and try to figure out where we're at. I do feel a lot better with where we're at right now as an offense, so that part, that's good, and that's a credit to our guys. So every week's a little bit different, and we're not focused on how they're doing or what they're doing. We're focused on us, and
so. I mean, that was a trip. I mean, I bet you he was looking at some of these offices and just being so jealous that the Bears are not putting up 40-plus points and losing efforts in some cases. Pretty incredible.
Yeah,
right?
Well, he was deflecting by basically saying, I'm happy with our offense the way it's going, and we're improving. He didn't comment on the fact that there's about 15 offenses, or at least this weekend, that was doing what he was supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that being said, I think he's got a better handle on being a head coach and not just known as an offensive coordinator. I think he's learned some things this year. I think that he's still in his second year only. I do have a better opinion of him now that we're winning. I mean, a lot of teams are going to start giving up now. You don't know how to read them. For instance, you see a team like the Jets struggling with the Dolphins. You know what I mean? You see other teams that are mailing it in. I don't see that with the Bears. I think that there's still hope for the Bears. Things got to break right. It's like 1 or 2%. I understand that, but all you can do is take care of your own business. And I think he's done a good job in saying, guys, we screwed up early. We got to start this season today. We start 1-0. I think that happened about 3-4 weeks ago. And I really don't understand why I'm being so positive about the Bears. But you got to just call it. You just got to call it like you've seen it. Yeah. I mean, everybody said, well, Detroit's nobody. Dallas needed that game.
Yes.
I don't care if they're, in it or not. I don't care if they control their own destiny or not. The fact that they were favored, they came down here and, got their heads handed to them. I don't care what the final score was. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan Even if you would have won that game, you might have been saying, we're just not good enough for the main stage.
Mike, you are so right. I mean, that game was so important to the Dallas Cowboys. Then they get the ball first. They elected to take the ball on offense first. They wanted to ram it down the Bears' throat, and they did so. A 17-play, 75-yard drive. They score a touchdown, and then their first defensive series, they get an interception on Mitch Trubisky. They're flying high, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the game, you forgot those first two series because the Bears dominated the Cowboys. I thought it was an impressive win, and I'm with you. It was a really good, it was a feel-good win for the Chicago Bears.
Right. Don't tell me the Cowboys didn't need it. I mean, here's another thing. Zeke Elliott. I mean, how many times are you going to ask out of a game? You're getting 20-something. How much money is this guy getting a year? I never saw Peyton say, take me out. Take me out. I never saw these guys say that. Mm-hmm. This guy, he pretends he's eating a bowl of cereal when he gets a first down, and then when the play's not called for him, he wants somebody to come in for him because he's gassed. He's never been in shape from day one. He's still a great running back, but the guy's gassed by the fourth quarter.
What kind of cereal you think he's eating?
Guy had Cocoa Puffs. He's eating the Cocoa Puffs. I've never seen nothing in my life. The guy gets 2 yards. They go first down. The guy goes and he goes to the buffet. Just get back to the huddle. You guys, it doesn't look that impressive this year. Last year it looked good. And then maybe this invisible cereal's for real because by the fourth quarter the guy can't move. He wants out.
Oh, that's hilarious. Mike, there's a very good chance that a team from that division is going to make the playoffs and might be either 500 or maybe even under 500 and host a playoff game against a wild card team. Don't you think they need to change that rule? If you're not above 500, you shouldn't be hosting a playoff game.
You got to do it this way. It's the way it is, man. It's a freak thing. What are you going to do? But I'll tell you what. What happens if they host it and win?
Yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying?
That's the thing. They got home field advantage. That helps.
They got home, but you know what? If you're good enough to win, you're not going to let them beat you. I understand what you're talking about, but you know what? I don't want to see them change that. That makes the division worth it. In other words, you could be like, Dave, watch that. That division games are no more important than any other games. You know what? The division games are important. And what happens between Philadelphia and Dallas may determine who goes for that division. So I think that I'm not going to be a guy that wants to change it. I like it the way it is. I'm sorry that there's going to be a team under 500, but guess what? That's the way it goes.
That's the way it goes. Okay, let's now
Let me ask you something.
You bet.
If the Bears were 7-8 right now, and they were in first place, would you give a rat's ass about if they're under 500 or not? We'd be distressed. We'd be distressed, but if they're in first place and we got a chance to host a playoff game, we'd be excited.
Hell right. You damn
well,
right.
Am I right or wrong, though?
You're definitely
in other
right.
words, the Bears may not go to the playoffs with a better record than the Cowboys, right? And they beat them. That being said, wouldn't we love to be in Dallas's position right now?
Oh, my gosh, yes. I would love it. Absolutely.
Well,
I'm with you.
crap the bed and you get rewarded.
I'm with you. By the way, Zach Sullivan is...
You ever crap the bed and they go, oh, is that wonderful? What a wonderful thing. You know? It smells so bad, but I'm sure you meant well. That's how the Cowboys are right now.
I'm not at that age yet. Zach Sullivan.
Well, no, it didn't happen the other day.
I know. Zach Sullivan, by the way, is saying LOL on Cocoa Puffs, but he would have gone with Fruit Loops.
But the guy's got a beard to hide his double chin.
That's right.
First of all, the guy's got a beard like Abraham Lincoln. Shave the beard, I think it'll make you faster.
That's right.
The guy's got, between his afro and the beard, he's got 15 pounds of hair on his face.
That's hilarious.
Plus you're wearing the 6-pound helmet. The guy's carrying around 23 pounds of head.
That's right. All right, let's move on now and talk about the rest of the NFL action from Week 14. The Green Bay Packers a winner, 20-13 over the Washington Redskins. The Packers were giving 13 points, so they did not cover, and they had come into the game 5-0-1 against the spread. Now, Aaron Rodgers said that he was frustrated with the offense, but that there was a silver lining. This was him yesterday.
I mean, it was frustrating at times, just not being able to kind of get over that hump and put them away. But, they got a good front. I know what their record is. But they have a stout front, good linebackers, and we ran the ball pretty well, but we just couldn't find that rhythm in the passing game. But it feels good to be 10-3.
Feels good to be 10-3. He said, I'll take 10-3 any time. But, Mike, there's a problem with this Green Bay Packers. I've been doing some studying. Their wide receivers are just not getting open, which has been a problem for this team in the past. But it's even worse this season. They have had very, very few games the entire season where there's been a wide receiver who had more than 50 yards pass receiving. This is going to be a big advantage, I think, for the Chicago Bears in their upcoming match against the Green Bay Packers and stopping the passing game of Aaron Rodgers. What do you think?
First of all, here comes the Bear fan in me. Okay,
I love it.
I'm going back to being 13. Mm-hmm. Okay, but when I was 13, I knew my football too. But I would let my heart take over. Mm-hmm. But my heart's going to take over a little bit because of fact. I want somebody to convince me that the Bears can't beat this team. That's all. Convince me they can't beat them because they got Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I get a kick out of that. Green Bay's 10-3 and they're on their way. New England's 10-3. Brady sucks and they're on the downward cycle. I'm just trying to figure all this out. So look, you're 10-3, but the Bears can beat you. That's the way I look at it. I think Aaron Rodgers is such a good quarterback, and he does cover up things like Brady does. The bottom line is this, though. Mm-hmm. You can't convince me that the Bears can't beat Green Bay. I mean, especially the way they're playing now, and if Nagy sticks to the game plan. Right. So I'm not going to sit here and say we're in trouble because we're playing the Green Bay Packers. We may be in trouble if we're playing the Chiefs. But to me, I'm comfortable playing the Packers.
Well, I'll tell you, the only thing that concerns me about this game is the offensive line against those two outside linebackers that the Packers have. Between those two guys, they've got 20-plus sacks. That's Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. One's got like 11, the other guy's got 10. And the Bears offensive line and Matt Nagy have to come up with a scheme to give Trubisky time to throw. This is going to be a great test for Mitch Trubisky at Lambeau Field against a Packers defense that has played well this season.
Yeah, they have. I mean, you get to give them a lot of credit and stuff. It's going to be a great test. But Dallas was supposed to beat us.
Sure.
The bad losses. Look, the London loss was the worst. I said we were done, and I believe we are done. But if we hope to win, we can't lose to Green Bay but beat Kansas City. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just got to go. If you lose one more game, you're possibly done. If in fact you're finished. So the Green Bay game's the most important out of all of them. They beat them, then they changed some things, but I still think they could beat Green Bay. I definitely don't see Green Bay as like years ago when they had Sterling Sharp or Jordy Nelson or Amon Green. I saw with Brett Favre. I see Rodgers a lot like I see Brady. You described New England too.
Yes.
This is the year Brady can't overcome the receivers around him. These receivers drop passes. I think Brady's offensive line is not as good as it was. And yesterday's throw to Edelman to end the game proved that. And if he's got Gronk, there's an extra blocker, or there's maybe Gronk at the goal line, and I said that he's going to regret losing him. I think that the same thing goes for Green Bay. I think that the Bears can put enough pressure on Rodgers where he's got to make some mistakes.
The Packers are now 5-1 straight up in their, 6-1 straight up in their last 7 games at Lambeau Field, and they open as 5.5-point favorites against the Bears with an over-under of only 41. What are your thoughts about how the odds are opening up on that game, 5.5 points for the Packers?
Right now, I would take the Bears. Right now, I take the Bears right off the bat without doing my homework.
I like that.
I mean, just off the top of my head, and I've had a pretty good run the last 2, 3, 4 weeks in college and pro football, which I do. Mm-hmm. But to me, 5.5. Carmen told me Carmen DeFalco on AM 1000 on Friday. One of his picks, now he had a loss, and he also had a win. His win was Miami. He says, I think the Jets, they shouldn't be giving anybody 5.5 points. And he was right. Mm-hmm. I feel that same way. I don't think Green Bay's good enough to give the Bears 5.5.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you on that one. And it's
and you know what Mitch Trubisky doesn't do? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing I want, because I want you to watch yesterday I watched one of the more remarkable quarterbacks in football win a game who throws as many touchdowns as interceptions, Jameis Winston. The reason there is hope for Mitch is because he's been taking care of the ball.
Yes.
He's been taking care of the ball. He ain't throwing it on the ground. He ain't throwing big interceptions. He's been lucky with a couple bad throws. The guys are making better catches. So, yeah, if you're telling me off the top of my head you're going to give 5.5 at Lambeau, my first reaction would be to take the Bears, and that might be bad news. I don't know.
I hear you. All right, let's move our attention to that Minnesota Vikings-Detroit game that happened at Minnesota. The Vikings are now 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games with Detroit because they were a winner, 20-17. The spread was 12.5 points. The Vikings were getting the Lions were getting 12.5 points, but that wasn't well. Actually, yeah, the Lions did cover. So that's good news for bettors who put their money on the Lions. Now, Mike Zimmer, head coach of the Vikings, was not totally pleased with the effort by the team, although he did say that all 3 phases of the team were efficient.
I thought it was an efficient win. Defensively, we played a little bit more like I expect us to play. It was unfortunate we let them score that touchdown there at the end. And then offensively, I thought we were efficient. We had a little bit of a lull in the start of the second half where we had 2 3-and-outs. And I thought special teams today, we got the return game going a little bit better, so that was a good thing. I still feel like we can continue to get better, and we need to get back to work.
Yeah, Mike, I saw a good portion of that game, and I was not really super impressed with the Vikings. I mean, they were playing a quarterback, David Blau, who they had tape on, and they could see what his strengths and weaknesses were. They had a good game plan against him. But nonetheless, the Lions mustered up 17 points. It was a much tougher win for the Vikings than it should have been.
No, the final was what? The final was, excuse me, Alex, you must have something on the computer. It was 20-7. Yesterday.
My bad.
But that's fine. They pushed. They were getting 13.
I am so sorry.
They were getting 13, so they pushed the thing. Here's what I'm going to say. The Lions, always put up a fight. I said he doesn't have his quarterback, Patricia, so what they're going to try to do is just like they try to do in Washington, keep things close. Mm-hmm. You don't think you're going to win, but keep things close.
Yes.
And that's exactly what Detroit tried to do. But I think that the fact is Minnesota looked more interested yesterday than Green Bay did. So I'm looking at they did what they had to do. You know what? It's the NFL. We saw what happened last week with upsets like Philadelphia going down. So I think this week to just get out and win the game. You don't get money for style points. You don't get money for 1-point wins over 20-point wins. So you know what? Or you don't get more points if you win by the most points. So you know what? Whether the score is 20-7 like Minnesota or 48-46 in San Francisco, you're in the mode now, just like the Bears. Will it matter to you if they win by 1 against Green Bay or if they win by 10? It won't matter. We're getting out of town with a win.
There you go. And now the Vikings, I should say, are undefeated at home, and their next home game is on December 23rd against the Packers, and then the next week after that against the Chicago Bears. So they got 2 tough games to finish the season, and we need the Vikings to lose at least 1 game for the Bears to have a shot at making that wild card playoff.
You would say we're going to step up in class from Detroit, and I don't care what anybody says. Dallas is a 500 team when we played them. They were mediocre, but they were the favorites because they're the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
They have the silver helmets. They're America's team. Right. I don't know how. They've only been around since 1960. The Green Bay Packers been around for 100 years. Bears, Giants, Redskins, but yet America's team is the Dallas Cowboys, and the most hated team is another team that's been around only since 1960, New England. But you know what? They bet them because, just like Notre Dame, it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Mike, I heard you talking about that topic on your excellent ESPN show here in Chicago, The Odds Couple with Carmen DeFalco. So I got to ask you, because I was like asking the question as I'm driving and listening to your show, if you had to pick one team to designate as America's team, you named some nominees, so to speak. Who would you pick? Name me one team.
The Chicago Bears.
There you go.
You know why?
Why?
Because the guy invented the league.
That's right. That's
Okay?
right.
So, and because the city is, you know, it's not a suburb like Dallas, okay? It's a big city.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chicago Bears are you know, you could have your Green Bay fans and your New York Giant fans. Bottom line is, George Halas brought Red Grange in. George Halas invented the league. George Halas started it. Mm-hmm. You know, on one of those big train cars. You know, flatbed train
That's
cars.
right,
Are you
that's
kidding me? And they're saying to God, hey, everything's going to be all right. I am Jared Jones. We are America's. No, you're not. It's the Bears. But if Green Bay wants to call themselves America's team, or if the Giants wanted to, or if the Redskins wanted to, or, you know, some other, Pittsburgh. How about Pittsburgh?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of great teams that should be represented, but they took the moniker. You know what I mean? So that's the way it goes. Hey, just because it says it doesn't mean it. Just check with the Raiders. Commitment to excellence. Commitment to dog crap. That's what that is.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, George Halas, entrepreneur, courageous, an innovator, and Chicago Bears, 100 years. You mentioned on the Odds Couple, Cowboys have only been around for 50 years. How the hell can they be America's team?
Well, and then people act ashamed to say Chicago?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Chicago Bears, look, it was a college football environment when the pros started. And then George Halas went to Illinois and got Red Grange. The party was over.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Bottom line is they started drawing full houses just to see this one guy, and that gave Halas the impetus to keep this league going. And Halas and all these other guys, you think they had a staff of 500 people like they have now? Halas sold the tickets. Halas made out the payroll. Halas wrote out the checks.
Right.
And I knew as a kid George Halas' secretary. I forget her name. He had one secretary. The draft was archaic. They met the phone booth. You know, I mean, basically a small room at the Hyatt or somewhere.
Yeah, right.
And they had teams with little flags up on their little card tables. You know, and there were multi-millionaires sitting there, like, you know, getting the job done.
Yeah, you are so right. And people in the chat room are talking about how well, you know, there's Chicago Bears fans throughout the United States. You go to any stadium and there's tons of Bears fans there, many of them who live there locally. You go to Arizona and for a Bears-Arizona game, and the stadium is 3/4 Chicago Bears fans because so many people
Well,
have
I
retired
watched
there.
Arizona yesterday. That was one of my losing picks. I mean, they Kyler Murray, he'll be playing shortstop for the Toronto Blue Jays in 3 years. Okay? That's all I'm going to tell you. That's all I want to say. And his buddy Cliff Kingsbury will be like at Florida Atlantic. But anyway.
I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you.
Kyler Murray's the best quarterback, the best person in the draft. I don't think Ryan Pace wouldn't have made that pick. Anyway, all I'm going to tell you is the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday traveled to Arizona. Unbelievable. I mean, I thought they were in Pittsburgh, for God's sake. I was looking for the rivers. I mean, the three rivers and the whole thing. They were at Heinz Field. I was looking for the ketchup bottle. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So that's just a nice vacation spot. And Kyler Murray, oh my God, you know, who knows? He may play for the Sox. He may take
I'd take that
from Tim Anderson at second base as the White Sox go into rebuild 14 in 2028.
All right, moving on to that Baltimore Ravens Buffalo Bills game at Buffalo. The Ravens a winner 24-17. This was one of the better games yesterday. Now Baltimore is 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. John Harbaugh was extremely complimentary of the Bills and what a tough team they were and how tough it is to play in Buffalo.
Very tough win because of the opponent, and I think the crowd here is great. It's one of the best places to play in the National Football League. Very loud crowd, very enthusiastic crowd, very knowledgeable crowd. But even beyond that, the football team is really good, and this is one of the best football teams in the league.
And the Ravens, in my mind, might be the best football team in the league. And the reason I feel that way, Mike, is because they find ways to win. You know, even when they're not playing well, their unsung heroes come and make big plays. And then this quarterback that they have, he just creates big plays. He's so calm for a young player. Lamar Jackson, of course, I'm talking about. What are your prospects on this Baltimore Ravens team? You think they can go far into the playoffs and maybe even make the Super Bowl?
I love Lamar Jackson, number one. He's old school, cares about his team, cares about his teammates.
Yep.
His teammates swear by him. That's one thing. Number two, John Harbaugh's the best coach in the family. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Number three, and I love Jimmy. Jimmy will be a great coach, you know, because what he does at Michigan will never be good enough, even though they were, in the spirals of death before he got there. I also think that Baltimore, they covered the spread. I had them at Vegas Scores and Odds. And by the way, folks, 1-866-504-2201 for the free message tonight. Check it out. Right now I'm second. The last 7 days in all sports at 14-7. NFL last 7 days 5-3. College football last 7 days 4-1. Last 30 days all sports 51-40. Last 30 days NFL 23-17. Last 30 days of college football 19-14. But they told me as a child you can't win. Yet I have it here documented. I don't know what you people got to do, but I know get together. You'll have Christmas presents. You'll be able to do things. Start getting in. Get a package. Go to VegasScoresAndOdds.com and get it done, because I had the Ravens yesterday. They're the most impressive and complete team I've seen. They're the leading rushing team. They average 5.6 yards a carry. And in a game of football, which is now dedicated to stop the pass, here's what I've always said. If you wanted to beat the damn Golden State Warriors, don't shoot threes. Go inside.
Yep.
Shoot mid-range jumpers.
Thank you.
Okay? And that's what happened. And Toronto ends up winning it. If you want to win in the National Football League and you want to pass like the other 30 teams, go ahead. But if you can throw that occasional pass but run for 100 or 200 yards as a team, nobody's beating you.
Yeah.
Nobody's beating you, and the kid's clutch.
The kid is clutch. There is no doubt about that. We're keeping an eye on the Ravens. They're kind of a favorite here at Vegas Scores and Odds as they move into the postseason. They're just a really fun team to watch, too, because they're just, like you said, Harbaugh is the best coach in the family. And
Man, there's three coaches in the family.
That's right. The dad is a coach.
You got Jimmy, Johnny, and you got the old man, but I'm sure the mother runs the show. That's just me.
That's right. Maybe she's the best coach because she turned out all these great coaches.
They're all great coaches. Look, if Jim Harbaugh became coach, if they told us tomorrow, Nagy doesn't want to coach anymore, and Jim Harbaugh's going to be the new coach of the Bears, I'd welcome it. I wouldn't have a problem with that, because I'll tell you what, he sort of put the culture back into San Francisco, but things went sideways because he had, the Kaepernick situation and some other things. But I believe in Jim Harbaugh, and I don't know if Michigan would be any better with anybody else.
All right, we are turning our attention now to a former Chicago Bears coach, Vic Fangio. His Denver Broncos easily beat the Texans at Houston 38-24, and the star of the game was young quarterback Drew Lock. He looks like the real thing. 22 out of 27, 309 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and this was Drew Lock after the game talking about why the victory seemed so easy.
We had a full 22, unit offense and defense show up today. That's for sure. I think our defense did an awesome job with Deshaun and those receivers and that, prolific offense that they have to be able to stop. He can throw it anywhere on the field. He can run around. He can scramble. He can make plays. So that's tough on them. And then for us to come in and play a defense that's flying around the field, hitting people, stopping the run, for us to go and do what we did, I think it speaks a lot for what this offense could be.
Mike, I saw the money line at plus 340 for the Broncos. Man, oh man, that would have been a sweet bet, huh?
Oh yeah, $100 to win 340. You know, I will say this. You know, Denver, they have growing pains. They have a new coach, an older coach. There was communication problems early. He's had some injuries. He's overcome them. I know Carmen DeFalco loves him. Mm-hmm. Partially because he's Italian, but also because he's a former Bear. And he'll always tell me, and he's been telling me for the past 4 or 5 weeks, they've lost every game by one score. And I said, that don't matter, Carm. If you win every game by one score, you know, here's the deal. You're 16-0. They don't go, well, he's 16-0, but he won all his games only by one score. So you can lose games by one score, but if you lose 12 of them, you're going to get fired.
Yep.
So you got to finish the job, and that's what they did.
Mike, I saw something. I'm going to try to find it and send it to you and Carm. Something that said that the vast majority of NFL games are one-score games. So that whole thing is a big myth.
It's all about one or two mistakes a game. If you really look at it, really hard, and you look at all the games, your life is based on one or two mistakes. And if your team, whoever plays the cleanest football, that's why last year the Bears covered almost every week, because they cashed in on mistakes. And this year they're not, because they don't cash in on all the mistakes.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Like a college professor.
Yeah.
I'm like a college professor, aren't I?
You are.
We should hold a class. Bears Ballroom at Triton. Come on in. Bears Ballroom, Triton College. You know what I mean? Have the pointers, have the blackboard. Are you kidding me? Bring in guest speakers like Shane and Nikki. Little Nikki. I love little Nikki and Tooch. You know, Heidi comes in, explains the dynamics of, and Karen comes in and talks about buying jerseys. The Bear Ballroom class. What do you think?
I love it.
Yeah. And then here comes Aldo. 100-year anniversary from now of Bear Ballroom, you will be remembered.
Thank you.
And you will be known as America's Bears Ballroom. Okay? Because you were there from the beginning.
All right. Well, tell you what, that game between the New Orleans Saints and San Francisco 49ers is going to be known as one of the highest scoring games in history. Mike, the over-under was 45, and in the first half alone, they surpassed that. That was unbelievable. And there was controversy also with Sean Payton. There was a fake punt play, and clearly the gunner for the Saints was being held all the way downfield, and that play is not reviewable. You can, it's just the NFL rule book is just.
Well, I saw the play.
Yeah,
that's legal what he did, because that's not his job to be covering a pass receiver. They're basically in punt formation.
Right.
So if they do a trick play like that. This guy can block him all the way down the field, which is, by the way they used to play wide receiver and corner. You could bump a Frank Gifford or a Pat Summerall or Johnny Morris all the way down the field until the ball was in the air, okay? So that was a perfectly legit play. People wanted a pass interference call. No, folks. The punt guy, the guy that's the jammer there, he's not thinking it's going to be a pass play. His job is to be the guy to dog him down the field. I love that rule. It was called correctly. One of the few things officiating did right all day yesterday.
I've got to double check that, Mike, because I think that the issue is that he was holding the gunner, and that's a defensive holding. They weren't looking for a pass interference, because you're absolutely right. That's not reviewable because that's technically not a pass receiver, but he was holding him down the field, grabbing his jersey, and that's what Sean Payton was upset about.
I understand that. That you got a better. But you know what? If you watch every punt play, Aldo.
Oh, yes.
They do it on every one.
Oh, absolutely.
They just beat the crap out of each other. Sometimes the guy's on the ground. There's two guys pounding at him, and they don't throw a flag. Look, yesterday was a bad day for officiating, so I'm not going to doubt what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that a lot of people thought it should be pass interference, and that's not the way the rules implemented. But look, the officiating in the New England game, I mean, nobody's saying this today, but today, New England, if they had some challenges left, they should. And Belichick, I've never seen him madder
Right?
Ever.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
they should have won that game. I mean, you look at it, the referees had a horrible day, and it seems to be this one refereeing crew that seems to be having the same week in, week out, bad plays and bad calls.
Yeah. I want to play this soundbite from Sean Payton, the Saints coach, after the game, because I love what he said. Despite the fact that the Saints scored 46 points, he was asked, are you happy with the way the offense played? And this is what he said.
No. Listen, it's a fair question, and yet I would say any game, if you were going to consider it your best game offensively, would have to include a win. So this isn't about just trying to get passing yards or rush. It's about winning games. So no.
That's a great response to that.
Great.
Who cares about the record books and the
I love
stats? You win, even if you win ugly, and there were plenty of ugly wins in the NFL this week. But you'd rather win ugly than lose pretty, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I'm tired of people calling 48, 46 classics. You know what? I agree with what Tony Dungy said last night. Every time there's a game in the 40s, it's a classic. He goes, not as a defensive coach. It's not a classic.
You're right.
And I agree with him.
Yes.
You know what? Classics aren't decided by sportscasters, okay, or by hyped up sports channels. You know, classics are decided mostly by the people, okay? And that, to me, was a mess of a game defensively. It was exciting to watch. But 48-46, I said to Carmen DeFalco, I said it, and I meant it. I go, this game, and this is why tomorrow I may get a positive ruling on this game. I go, there's no way this game's going under. I go, Carmen, it's 44.5. I said, you know, if I was on Barroom, if I was on Vegas Scores and Odds, I'd take this. I said, are you kidding me? 44.5. And I said, the only thing I said, is Drew Brees playing? And he said, yes. I go, that's too low. Yeah. It was over at halftime.
I know.
I mean, I didn't think it would get that ugly, did you? But
no.
I mean, it was a great game. And Tony and Jimmy, he's a good kid, this Jimmy Garoppolo, his family.
Oh, my
I knew
goodness.
his uncle worked for the Teamsters. Jimmy G proved his worth yesterday. Played basically catch-up football and played even football with Drew Brees, a certified Hall of Famer.
It's quite possible that game moved Jimmy Garoppolo into the NFL elite quarterbacks. Completed 75% of his passes, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. It was just an incredible game.
Is he a top 3 quarterback that if he wins is an odds-on favorite to get laid that very evening by somebody?
That guy's so good looking. He can get laid whenever he wants.
My God, he's the next Tarzan. He's
Really?
the next Tarzan.
That's right. Johnny Weissmuller.
Are you kidding me? Johnny Weissmuller. Are you kidding me? Move over. Buster Kraft, move over. Lex Barker, move over. And anybody else in the 50 Tarzan, move over. The next Tarzan. Off season, forget about Space Jam. It's Tarzan with Jimmy G.
I hear ya.
He'd have to shave his body hair, though, because I think Tarzan was hairless, was he not?
I believe in most of the movies he was, yes.
All right, we're going in a weird place.
Yes, we are. Cleveland, a winner against Cincinnati at Cleveland. Final score 27-19. The Cincinnati Bengals are now 1-12. And Q from Cincy has this question for you. He says, "Hey, Mike, will my Bengals ever be good?" What do you think, Mike?
Yes. When you take Burrow, you will be good. And you know what? Everybody's saying, "Well, Burrow he'll get killed here." Like every quarterback, like Troy Aikman got killed at Dallas.
Right.
And, you know, everybody goes through growing pains. Maybe not the first year, but maybe the second year. Like maybe Bitch did early in the half. But let me tell you something. This coach I believe in. I like Burrow, and he's from Athens, Ohio. Mm-hmm. He wanted to play for Ohio State, so they got rid of him.
Right.
They told him for 3 years, you're not good enough. I'm sorry. Have you seen Jamarcus Haskins play lately? I mean, he's horrible. But they didn't want. They don't like pocket passers for the most part. So he goes to LSU, and now they're going to win the national championship. Man, if you're Cincinnati, you trade Dalton, or you keep Dalton if you want as your second guy. But he makes a lot of money. You get rid of Dalton. You bring in Burrow. You go get Go get Fitzpatrick. He'll play for another team. The guy just is so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Or get some veteran quarterbacks and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are better days ahead for the Bengals, but Q from Cincy, you better be patient.
Yeah, I mean, my God. I mean, there's people. I mean, the Bengals, maybe they should just go back to the old unis when it just said Bengals on the side. Get rid of the tiger stripes. It's not gone good.
I hear you. Well, they had maybe a season or two. I remember.
They do. They have one every. Well, Marv Lewis had one good season every 5 years. That kept them employed.
That's true. It is the.
I mean, I had one good grade every 5 years, and they still put me back.
Yes, it is the stink of Marv Lewis that is still haunting that team. That's the problem.
It's not from the river.
All right. I want to play Freddie Kitchens talking about the Odell Beckham situation. Apparently, Odell Beckham suffered a sports hernia injury in preseason, and so he was asked about that in the postseason, and also a report that Odell is unhappy with the way the injury was handled by the Browns, and he wants out of Cleveland. This is what Freddie Kitchens said after the game.
I'm not going to comment on him wanting out of Cleveland. I just know that we've been monitoring Odell since he got back for training camp, and he is dealing with something there. It does limit him during the week, so I think he's done a good job of trying to prepare and trying to push through and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the other thing, I don't respond to stuff like that.
Mike, this Cleveland Browns franchise is just horrible.
First of all, I didn't know the sheriff from Mississippi Burning was the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Okay? And, these three balls, we don't know where they're at, and that's just the way it's going to be. And we're tired of you Northerners coming down here. And, as far as Odell Beckham's concerned, I don't know. Look, Odell Beckham's a diva. He's not a team player. There's on Twitter a picture of him not even in the huddle yesterday. He split out to the left. Then he says he's unhappy with Cleveland, the team that he wanted to come to. He had New York, then he comes over here. He's not worth the aggravation. Baker Mayfield also made a statement throwing the training crew under the table by saying it wasn't taken care of properly. Well, he's getting that from Odell Beckham.
Exactly.
So he's doing his bidding for him. Yep. So now you got a problem internally between the training staff that you depend on to try to get you right. And a guy that's caused nothing but problems in Odell Beckham everywhere he's been. Everywhere.
Yep.
And yesterday not getting in the huddle and being split out while 10 guys are in the huddle, that was the end of the line for me. Period. End of story. I don't care if he's hurt. I don't have enough room in my head for a guy like this. He's a problem wherever he goes.
Rel Ramey in the chat room says that Odell is a pussy. Look at he's got a lot of Y's in that word.
Well, I like the way you sounded the whole thing out to make it accurate.
That's right. That's my job here.
But I mean, he's a pain in the ass. I wouldn't want him on my team. I'll tell you another guy I wouldn't want on my team. Phillip Rivers. I own the Los Angeles Chargers. Whether you like the move or not, you don't want to go, you're tired, you got 10 kids, you'd like to be San Diego, I make the drive, blah, 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 you'd be gone. You're not worth the aggravation. You've never done a damn thing except be a stat stuffer. See you later. I mean, there comes a time where even as I owned a 16, I didn't own it, I sponsored a 16-inch softball team that won 2 national championships.
Yeah.
And there was about 3 to 4 times a year that I'd have to step in with my coaches and everything else and tell the players this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And bottom line is, as an owner, you don't let your players disparage you, and as an owner, you call Odell Beckham and go, get up here. What are you doing? Why are you throwing us under the bus? We brought you over here. We want you to be great. We think we got a good quarterback. But you're doing this to us after you wanted out.
Right.
So that's just the way I am. That's the way I'd be, man. No doubt about it. If you don't like it here, get lost. And if you don't want to take a limo ride for an hour, okay, or 2, whatever it takes, 3 or 4, then fly here, Phillip Rivers. But I'm tired of players that think they can dictate who haven't done a damn thing.
That's right.
Brady doesn't dictate like Odell Beckham does. Brady doesn't dictate like Terrell Owens does. Brady doesn't dictate like the rest of these guys do. It's amazing.
It's very, very true. An excellent point. All right, let's move on to Atlanta, where the Carolina Panthers lost by 20 points to the Falcons. And it was a great moment at halftime of that game. Roddy White, the longtime wide receiver, played 11 years with the Falcons. He was honored. He's got his name on their ring of honor there at the stadium. And after the game, Coach Dan Quinn talked about Roddy and the fact that the theme of the day was competitiveness, and Roddy exemplified that as well as the whole team with their performance against the Panthers.
Yards. I'm awfully proud of him.
Let me go back there, right there.
A day, to honor Roddy White and his family, stands for what a competitor is. And, Matt Ryan to, hit a milestone for throwing over 50,000 yards. I'm awfully proud of him. And as well as Julio Jones, for 6 consecutive years to be over 1,000 yards. I think that's the kind of day it was. And I thought our team competed like those three. I thought the whole team is our best complementary game in all 3 phases.
Mike, I got a question for you. I have, over my period of watching all sports, usually when the coach or the manager is fired during the season, the team generally responds with a win because they're kind of happy that the coach has left. Well, with the Panthers case, they played terribly yesterday, and I think it was an indication that they were unhappy that Chico was fired. Your thoughts?
Big mistake by them. Same thing I thought, Aldo. Same thing I thought. How do you get rid of a class act in the middle like that?
Unbelievable.
How do you do that? And yet I hear the same people that say that it was okay to do that say you should keep Jason Garrett till the end of the year, or you should keep Jason Garrett, So I'm trying to figure out. Chico Rivera is one of the classiest guys. I worked with the man at the Score. Yeah. We had a great time. I used to we all called him Chico there. I don't think people around the country call him that.
I think you're right.
And we had the time of our lives. I worked with him, and then I remember he got a job on Wannstedt's staff as a volunteer cutting tape, and the team wouldn't even pay him. He was a volunteer.
Unbelievable.
And Wannstedt wouldn't even go to bat for him, period. So he did that. So he worked his way up. I love Stephanie. I love his family, his wife Stephanie, great people. And you know what? You saw a team that had their hearts taken from them. That's taken the blame because of basically a coach that was 2-time coach of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And you lose your quarterback, and he's a big part, and they held it together for a while. But you know what? They wanted somebody new, and that's the way it's going to go. But you know what? McCaffrey and all these guys, they did the best they could. But yesterday was the first time I saw like a lack of effort. And what happened to Atlanta? Wow.
Yeah.
Help me out with Roddy White. Wait a minute. Did I miss the memo? Hold on. I'm going to go to the black box. You like when I do that, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, hold on for a minute. Roddy White, Atlanta Falcons. Let's see what it says.
11-year career.
According to Wikipedia, Sherrod Lamore White is a former American football wide receiver who played his entire professional career with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. He said Roddy White, right?
Yeah, it's Roddy White. The black box was correct, yes.
Okay, well, isn't it always?
I just had a black box.
Let me ask you a question. Did I miss the memo? How many Roddy White mentions have you had over the last 15 years that you can remember? That's so, Mr. Competitor. I just want you to help me here. Yet you look and you see the din, and then you see the number of catches, and he is.
Yes.
Look, the guy's got 808 receptions, and I can guarantee you never hear about it. You hear about Julio Jones, right?
That's
right.
You
hear about the Atlanta the Matt Ryan.
Chad Johnson.
Roddy White. They talk about, wait a minute, they talk about Frank Gore being an old-timer.
Right.
Okay? This guy's been playing wide receiver since 2004.
Yeah, 11 years. 11-year career.
Are you kidding me?
Yep. Yeah,
and you never hear about him, do you?
I only knew him because I played fantasy football, and he was a reliable guy that you pick up in the 7th, 8th round of your draft,
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
And then we got to listen to divas like Beckham. Think about this.
You ain't kidding.
Better than Beckham, but who do you hear about? You hear about Well, I would know something about this. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, gets the grease.
Yep, I'm with you.
Unbelievable.
I am with you. All right.
How much you think people learn on the barroom from this show?
Well, according to what I'm seeing in the chat room, I don't know. I can't.
Nobody.
I can't gauge what they're learning, but they're having a damn good time listening to you.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
having fun because you know what? It's Monday. We won. We didn't have to play. We won a big game. We're in a good mood. We're winning our games. Come on now.
Yeah.
It could be worse.
There you go.
I want to wish my mom. We had her 90th birthday at the White Eagle this past
awesome.
Saturday. He had about 70 people there. There was a table of people over 90. They were calling me kid. I was impressed. It was a great time. We had a great DJ. It was great to hear Guy Lombardo again and Glenn Miller.
Nice stuff.
My mom's guest list had had Herbert Hoover on it. That's how old she is. But I had to tell her he had passed on. But we had a great time. The White Eagle Banquets. Thank you very much. Aldo, back to you.
Excellent. All right, at New York yesterday, the Miami's a 1-point loser to the Jets. Adam Gase talked about Sam Darnold's performance. It was up and down. Here are Gase's comments after the game.
He had some decisions that I'm sure he's going to want back. I got some calls that I definitely want back. I don't think I helped him out enough today. I put him in some really bad third down situations. I mean, some of this, it's on me as much as it's on him on some of those things.
What was your confidence?
I wish that Matt Nagy would say that more often about Mitch Trubisky and hold him more accountable publicly. He's always protecting his quarterback, like if he's got soft feelings and stuff. I think Mitchell Trubisky has been playing well because he's heard all the criticism from fans and critics. What do you think?
Oh yeah, from shut the TVs off to everything else, he's taken a beating. I think Akeem Hicks. I think that it's gotten around from Tariq Cohen to Akeem Hicks to Eddie Jackson to Mitch. Shut off the TVs to Nagy. Don't start bombing on the fans. Don't. And now they're not because they're winning. I just want everybody to know that when you boo a football team, which I think is appropriate, if they're not doing the job. The Bears who had bruised feelings about the booing, I want everybody to remember this, okay? Yesterday, the New England Patriots were booed on their home field in the first half, running off the field, booed badly. And you know what? You didn't hear a word today because they understand. They didn't put the product on the field that they're supposed to. Bottom line is that's what I want the Bears to understand. When you win, you're heroes. When you lose, you're going to be criticized. It's very simple. And Miami and New York, I give them credit. The Miami coach wants to win so bad, and he doesn't care about tanking. They were 4-2 their last 6 games covering. They covered yesterday. There's a guy that's going to be a good coach because he's showing his players we're not tanking, we're trying to win, and we got screwed over by the refs. And I told the ref after the game yesterday it was a horseshit call. You could read his lips.
Excellent analysis. I totally agree with you. Let's move on now to Tampa Bay, where the Bucs, a 3-point winner against the Colts, 38-35. And after the game, Jameis Winston was asked, why the win? How'd you guys pull this out? And he said it's because of a new mentality with Tampa Bay.
In the past, we would have lost that game. But the fact that our head coach just has so much belief in us, the fact that we are expecting to go out there and win football games, and it's no negative energy. It's we gotta do what's best for us. We gotta be good. If we're good, we're a tough team to stop. But if we keep stabbing ourselves in the foot, that's how teams beat us.
Mike, the total has hit the over in 10 of Tampa Bay's last 11 games, and next week the Bucs play the Lions, and the over is currently at 47.5. I think we might see them hit the over again next week. You ever think about putting some money on the Bucs with this new offense with Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston throwing touchdown passes?
Well, he not only throws touchdown passes, he throws balls to the other team.
He throws a lot
which can be returned for touchdowns. I mean, yesterday, look, he's had 100 turnovers since 2015.
Oh, my God.
Okay? That's 20 a year. Really, 20, 15, 16, 17, 18. There's 20 a year, going on 19.
Wow.
2019. You can't win that way. I'd get rid of him at the end of the season. He had 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions yesterday. Sure, they won the game, but barely. You're not going to win games when you have a quarterback that turns the ball over 100 times in a 5-year span. Period.
Mike, I think...
And I'd get rid of him. He's a second-string quarterback to me. If I had to win a game, he'd be one of the guys that I wouldn't pick. If you had to pick 10 quarterbacks or 15 or even 20, I'd never pick him if I had to win a game. Never. It's different than college. You're allowed, the defenses aren't as sophisticated. He threw 2 of the worst interceptions I've ever seen to linebackers. He can't see the field.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, it hasn't happened for him or Mariota, period.
He's making $20 million this year. It's the 5th year of his 5-year contract, and now he becomes a free agent. So the Bucs have a big decision to make.
He gets $1 million for every turnover per year. 20 million bucks, 20 turnovers a year. How bad is that?
I hear you.
And this season's not even over yet. Think about that. We could technically go about 23, 24 turnovers a year. They're not even done playing yet. Yesterday he threw some bad passes. They overcame it. He did bring them back. But you know what? You can't win like that with that kind of quarterbacking. Think about Mitch Trubisky if he had 100 turnovers in his last 4 years. Or if he had 20 turnovers a year, we'd be killing the guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Basically. So, you know what? To me, he's a backup eventually.
Yeah, well, I think he's going to probably be paid backup type salary because there's no way that anyone's going to pay him $20 million next season. Even
you pay Dak Prescott $40 million.
No, there's some tough decisions to be made by some of these teams.
That ain't a tough decision to me.
Really?
$25 million or nothing, kid. $25 million. Maybe we go up to 30 with incentives. But you know what? I watched you against the Bears. They play good D, but you were off your game, and it was a big ball game for us. And you know what? We're not really getting all that much better. You got a great running back behind you. That's not working out. You have one of the top offensive lines in the league. See, to me, if Dak Prescott is playing like this with Dallas, and it's not bad, if he went to a team with no offensive line, he'd be in trouble. Period. And I like the kid, but I just don't see paying somebody that kind of money. He shouldn't be making more than the top 10 quarterbacks in football. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay. Phillip Rivers is also a free agent after this season. His Chargers win 45-10, an easy win over the Jaguars in Jacksonville. After the game, Rivers said this about the win.
A little too late in terms of postseason hopes and our expectations coming into the season, but we still talk about finishing strong, and you've heard me say many times, everything matters. Every game matters.
You don't like the guy, do you?
That's his nickname. Too little, too late. He's been saying he's got the speech for every year. I think they're 3 and 4. He's the elite Cutler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the elite Cutler. He's a stat stuffer. He gets left alone in Los Angeles for the most part. They play in front of 20,000 people. I do know this. He hasn't played all the time with great teams, but he has played with some pretty good players and some pretty good teams also. They had Drew Brees, who won that one. Mm-hmm. They had They had a shot at Eli Manning. He went to 2 Super Bowls, whether you like him or not. So Phillip Rivers, to me, like I said, I don't like the guy. He complains too much. For a guy that's made all that money, and for a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of skins on the wall. And I'm not just blaming him. I'm blaming the whole organization is a country club, basically, that's not conducive to football. It really isn't. I remember Doug Buffone said he made a visit out there when San Diego was trying to get him for the AFL.
Right.
And he told them, he was from Western Pennsylvania. He was a National Football League fan. Mm-hmm. And he went out there. There was palm trees and, everything else. And Doug's going, I can't play football in this environment. And he went and signed with the Bears.
Oh, thank you.
and plus George Halas was the owner.
Yeah, right.
So now you're going to go meet George Halas. Who do you want to meet? Alex Spanos or George or whatever? Who was Carol Rosen? George Halas was wooing him. And the San Diego Chargers, according to Doug, were wooing him. And, Doug knew it. And he made a visit, but he didn't like it.
Yeah. That is a great story. Doug Buffone.
And they've had great players like Chuck Muncy, Lance Allworth, Keith Lincoln. Great players that John Hadel, Rod Mix. Charlie Joyner. I can name them all night long, like Lionel Richie. It just hasn't transpired. Dan Fouts. Are you kidding? Wes Chandler?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Exactly. Junior Seau.
Junior Seau. A big name player. Guys like that. But you know what they never had over there? They never had defense until Seau and his guys showed up. Rodney Harrison and those guys. But when they were putting up, that was sort of like Tampa. They were putting up 45 points and losing because they never had any defense.
Yep.
Where's your horse? Over there. Is that okay? Yep. Okay, thank you.
At New England yesterday, the Kansas City Chiefs go there and they win 23-16. Mike, you were talking about classics, all these high-scoring games. You know what? I thought that game, Kansas City and New England, that was a classic, hard-fought battle between two very good teams, although a lot of people right now are down on the Patriots. What's your overall feeling on the Patriots and how they're playing?
These guys are in first place by 2 games. Think about that. 2 games. They're 10-3. Their quarterback, unreal. Think about it. He's got 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,400 yards. His quarterback rating a little low. His last 4 games haven't been all that good. But if you were going to tell me the Bears are 10-3, although their quarterback's starting to get a little bit older, but they got a 2-game lead, we'd be thrilled. But yet, this team got booed because New England fans are smart. They're starting to see, and I think maybe Golick and Wingo were right last week. I didn't believe them. Maybe we're seeing the downturn. But would it surprise you if they were in the Super Bowl?
A little bit because I like this Ravens team so much. And then Kansas City going to New England where they lost the AFC Championship game last year. And them going there now yesterday, Sunday, and winning. That tells me that the Patriots maybe are the third, maybe even fourth best team because even though the Steelers are playing with a third-string quarterback, they're playing damn good football. We're going to talk about them in a minute here.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. But I've been predicting the downfall of the Patriots now for the last 5 years. So what do I know?
Right. You know what? The last 5 years, I guarantee you, a lot of people didn't have the Patriots even in the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And yet there they are every year.
Yep.
So if somebody's going to tell me that Brady, once the playoffs start, can't get hot or figure it out with a pretty good defense, I'm here to tell you, you're out of your mind because nobody thought they'd go last year. Last year, Kansas City was the flavor. This year, Baltimore's the flavor. Okay? The difference is that New England, if they play Baltimore, may have to go to Baltimore, or I don't know how it sets up, but let's face it, they can be beat now in New England. And that's what I think fans are upset about because they never got beat at New England. So now when you see that, that is a troubling sign. No question about it.
Well, to tell you how good this Patriots team is, the only 3 quarterbacks to beat the Patriots this year are probably 3 of the best quarterbacks in the AFC, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, and Patrick Mahomes. Now, one thing that I should say about Mahomes is that he did injure his hand late in the first half, and he was asked about it. Mahomes was asked about it. He says, frankly, it did not feel real good. And this is what his coach, Andy Reid, said about the hand injury.
No, but he kept messing with that hand, and I could tell he wasn't gripping all that well. But he never says anything, so I'm going to make a big stake out of anything. So.
They're supposed to take x-rays today, so we'll be keeping an eye on that because if Mahomes is not available for the next game or a period of time because of a broken bone in the hand or something like that, that's really going to hurt Kansas City's chances as they move on. Their record now is 9-4. All right. What else we got here? We got Pittsburgh.
I'll tell you what, Andy Reid, did you hear him talking? Sounded sad. Jim, let's listen to him again, real quick.
Okay.
Listen to this guy pronunciate and enunciate.
No, but he kept messing with that hand, and I could tell he wasn't gripping all that well. But he never says anything, so I'm gonna make a big stake out of anything.
He and Freddie Kitchens would make a great combo.
That's what I sounded like when the state trooper asked me to get out of the car. So that's all I'm going to tell you. And there I was going out to the state trooper office. That's all I'm going to tell you. Okay, all right. That's all I wanted to say.
That's excellent. All right, wow. At Arizona, Pittsburgh a winner, 23-17, and Mike Tomlin said it was a collaborative win because all three phases played well.
It was a collaborative effort. It took place in all three phases. Obviously, we're far from perfect. We had mistakes in all three phases, but that's life, particularly, in this game at this level, man. A lot of respect to those guys, man. They were game today.
What'd you think about Arizona? I think you told me you saw some of that game.
Oh, I saw the whole thing. It was like a nightmare. I had Arizona. Oh, no. I had Oakland. Thank God I had the Rams last night. I had a good day on Vegas Scores and Odds. By the way, check them out, Vegas Scores and Odds Sports, VSAO Sports on Twitter or VegasScoresandOdds.com. I watched them yesterday. I'm going to tell you something. Kyler Murray, to me, I watched him. I watched the whole game. Near the end of the game, he choked. He basically let the moment get him. He was running with the ball, just flew out of his hands. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out all these grown adults that grade the draft. This was the best guy. I mean, look where they're playing. I mean, bottom line is when you play in the Big 12, there's not a whole lot of good defense. So these quarterbacks can deceive you. So I just was very disappointed in his performance. And I just got to say, I think Mike Tomlin, I saw something today. I don't think he's ever had a losing season in 13 seasons.
I agree.
He's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think he's done one of his best coaching jobs ever. I mean, he's got people you never heard of that are leading teams to victory, and that takes a great coach. He also covered for Antonio Brown, kept the kid alive in the NFL for years. Same with Le'Veon Bell. All these issues, the national anthem, when the Ranger ran out and the rest of the team didn't. He's handled it all. Keeps things in-house for the most part.
Yep.
And then gets rid of the guys like I told Pittsburgh to do last year. And isn't it funny? Antonio Brown's out of football and Le'Veon Bell is for the New York Jets. And yet who's there in the wild card? The Pittsburgh Steelers.
There you go.
So great job by this guy.
There you go. And it's funny because Rel in the chat room is echoing everything that you just said about Mike Tomlin. He is a winner. He has gotten rid of the bad apples, and he's winning now with a third-string quarterback. It's pretty amazing.
They always gave it. You know what I always said about Tomlin? Well, they're winning because of Big Ben. No, they're winning because of Mike Tomlin.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned the Oakland Raiders game. They were a loser, 42-21 to the Tennessee Titans, and this Titans offense is really getting it done. The total has hit the over in each of Tennessee's last 6 games. And by the way, the over-under for next week's game between Tennessee and the Texans is 47.5. Now, after the game, Gruden applauded the Titans offense. That's Gruden, the Raiders coach.
I'd like to congratulate the Tennessee Titans. They came in here and really put a show on offensively. Tannehill is playing extremely well. I like the way we came out and played offensively. Unfortunately, we couldn't sustain it.
That's another coach that sounds like
He had no clue yesterday. They just got run over. I mean, and I'm not a Derek Carr guy. I'm not. I mean, I just see this guy, and Gruden. Look, they had a brief glimpse of hope midway through the season. That's over now. I will tell you this: it should be interesting to see where they go on from here. But they got a lot of draft picks coming. Jacobs was hurt yesterday, so I can understand. They're not good enough. They don't have enough depth yet, but we'll see what happens. I think that they're having a better year than they did last year, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I am praying that the Raiders continue to lose because they're on a bit of a losing streak now. They've fallen to, 6-7. And while they have the first-round draft pick of the Chicago Bears because of the Khalil Mack trade, the Bears have their second-round draft pick. So the more games the Raiders lose, the higher that second rounder will be for the Chicago Bears. So fingers crossed there. And speaking of free agent quarterbacks, like we were talking about earlier, Ryan Tannehill is now going to be a free agent quarterback, and he has really upped his value. In my mind, out of all of these excellent free agent quarterbacks, he might be the one getting the most money during the offseason. Well, he and of course Tom Brady. Tom Brady is, despite his age, is still going to command a lot of money.
You know what? I don't know how much money the guy needs. I know he made a lot of money when he was drafted. I'm sure he's got a lot of money now. But if he goes somewhere else, see, it's not like being a free agent in baseball where you go somewhere and you rely on your own individual physicality and mentality to help meld into the team and put up some stats. It's more of an individual game. Pete Rose told me I never had anybody help me bat. You know, nobody came up and took a snap from me before I swung the bat. And so it's you alone. If he goes to a system that's not the Titan system, then he may go back to being the bad quarterback he was. Because, you know what? Jim Plunkett with New England, with San Francisco, was horrible. Then he went to Oakland, and he found a wealth with the system that fit him. So Tannehill's got to be conscious of that. I can't understand why free agents sometimes pick teams that aren't conducive to their abilities.
Yeah, I hear you. And Kevin in the chat room basically said the same thing. He says, it would be silly for Ryan not to go anywhere else. He's probably going to re-sign with Tennessee. But, money talks sometimes. And
Well, they might put him on a franchise tag.
Well, that is true. They could do that. That is true.
Yeah, they could put him on the franchise, which is what I would do. What's he going to do? Start bitching? That would be next. They gave him this big chance to come back and make. And you know what? Let's see you do it again.
There you go.
Let's see you do it again.
I'm with you on that. Now, last night, did you get a chance to see any of that Rams-Seattle game, or were you?
Yeah, I had the Rams.
Oh, that's right.
And you know what? I was upset when Goff threw the interception. And they returned it to make it 21-9. I said, "Oh, here we go again." It's been one of those crazy days, and you're playing with Seattle. But I had confidence in the Rams, just like I have confidence in all my picks. Sometimes the gambling gods are with you, sometimes they're not. They're with me on that one.
Yeah, Seattle was 5-0 straight up coming into the game, but they trailed early 21-3, and even despite that interception for a touchdown that helped close the gap, Seattle, as one of the announcers said last night, they're just not built to come from behind. That's a running team first and foremost, and despite the great play of Russell Wilson, they just don't have the weapons to come back from behind from that type of a deficit. And the Rams pass rush was just electric. This was Sean McVay after the game talking about the win over the Seahawks.
Great team win. Really pleased with our guys today. Definitely some things that we can clean up, but I thought our defense was outstanding from the start against a great offense that's really been putting a lot of pressure on people. It's a great football team tonight that we played. Coach Carroll and his staff, we have so much respect for that team. Thought really our team did a nice job responding, and now we got to do a great job next week against the Cowboys.
That's right. They got the Cowboys next week, a team. The Rams are hot. The Cowboys need a big win. That's going to be an interesting contest.
They should kill the Cowboys.
I agree with you.
I mean, the Cowboys don't have chemistry. I saw last night a team that got off to a slow start because they didn't play in the in the preseason. I mean, I'm not going to just say it. They just didn't get going. And now they're going. And I watched them. I was impressed with them yesterday. Goff had a pretty damn good game, too. Made a couple mistakes, but, I thought that they acquitted themselves nice, and they're the team that may cost the Bears at the end.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Mike, is that both Mitch Trubisky and Jared Goff, they trained together during the off season, and their seasons are basically mirrored in that they played terribly for the first 8-9 games and then started to really progress and are now hot quarterbacks. Isn't that weird? Maybe they need to, I don't know, maybe train less together or something, because
they need to train with Tom Brady. How's that?
There you go.
No, but you know what? Look, I'm never going to question guys that try to get better and keep themselves in shape. It was just one of those years. Look, pressure's on these teams. The Bears were only they were one of the youngest teams. Okay, and so are the Rams. I mean, but the Rams, maybe they thought it was going to be easy again this year. Look at Cleveland. There's a lot of teams that haven't come to fruition. Atlanta got started late. I'm still into this preseason. How much did Atlanta play during the preseason? How much did Matt Ryan play? Why are we seeing teams that crap the bed in the first half all of a sudden explode in the second half? You know?
Yep.
So, I mean, to me, I'd play my guys. I wouldn't play them, overzealously, but I'd play them a little bit each game. I'd give them a couple series each game just to get loose, a reason to get dressed, and that's it. I wouldn't say, you guys don't have to get dressed tomorrow. No, you go through the calisthenics, the drills, like everybody else. So, that's going to be interesting. I want to see if that changes at all, because the NFL is cyclical when it comes to training methods too, and I just don't see the upside this year with not playing your players in the preseason. I think it went negative this year.
I hear you. I am with you there. Now, I want to remind our audience that we are back here Wednesday at noon Central, and this is Packer Week here in Chicago, so we've got a lot to talk about regarding the Bears and Packers, and then every Wednesday, Mike has his 3 free picks for you. So we've got another great show coming up Wednesday. Mike, give us a little bit of a tease for what we're going to talk about on Wednesday regarding the Packers by way of telling me how much do you like it when the Bears beat the Packers?
Well, I like it when they play the Packers. As a kid, it was torture because they beat us all the time, except in '63 because Paul Hornung was suspended for gambling. If Paul Hornung's not suspended for that year, I contend the '63 Bears never happened. So we got a break there. You lost one of the top players in football due to, he's throwing down money, and, just like we should, like the guy from Arizona. I mean, if you play for Arizona and then you lose betting Arizona, you know what? Just find a bridge to jump off of. It's not going to be well for you. And that's what Josh Shaw did. I think that's his name. But I just think the Bear-Packer rivalry is one of the top 5 rivalries in all sports.
I hear you.
But it's been one of those weird rivalries where both teams simultaneously haven't been good at the same time. This is one of those games where you're going to see that. And when the 80 Bears were playing, the Packers sucked. When the 70 Bears were playing, the Green Bay was better. The 60 Packers were better than the 60 Bears. So, it's a deal where, you'd like to see them both play well. You got Rodgers versus Trubisky. You got everybody's going to be paying attention to this game, so it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome, and we're going to be here to cover it from A to Z, and we're going to cover some of the other top games. We're going to talk more about that Cowboys-Rams game. We got people in the chat room saying this week I am a Cowboys fan because we need the Rams to lose at least one game. They hold the tiebreaker over the Chicago Bears. We need them to lose 2 games, that is. They hold the tiebreaker over the Bears, and so lots of things need to happen for the Bears to squeeze into the playoffs, something that Mike and I didn't think was even possible. Mike said after the Raiders game ain't going to happen, and then I said that probably 3-4 weeks later. But hey, there's a sliver of a chance. We're fans, so we'll hope, right?
Listen, they got as much a chance as I do of being valedictorian of the college class that I go to. Are you kidding me? But it should be good, Aldo. Great time. We'll have some picks. VegasScoresAndOdds.com. Check them out at VSAO Sports. Give us a follow, folks. Also at Bears Barroom on Twitter. Also Mike North at North to North, NORTH, number 2, NORTH. I appreciate it, my friend.
You got it, brother. We'll talk to ya.